Hi everyone, welcome to Ethernal Realms and welcome to the month ahead astrology reading. Make sure you check your sun, moon, and rising signs for a comprehensive view of the month. Additionally, I would recommend watching the tarot reading of the month ahead to get a different perspective. While you will know the astrology in advance through this session, I will also send you a reminder when the astrological events are near. All you have to do is subscribe, hit the bell, and you will be notified as the events occur through my community page. I occasionally post behind the scenes, meditation guidance, quizzes, and polls, which you can check out for yourself. And it goes without saying that you will be notified when new videos are out, such as other zodiac readings and pick a card tarot readings as well. If you prefer to cut down the guesswork about your month ahead, you can always connect with me via Etsy to get a personalized week-by-week month ahead tarot reading paired with the general astrology. Enough about me, let's talk about you. So let's talk the overview of September. Okay, I'm going to divide this into separate storylines. There are a couple of things happening in parallel, and at some points in time, different things are being activated. So just the general themes going on here. Let's talk about the first one. Is that in the month of September, there are going to be lots of changes on the personal level. And that's because we have Mercury and Venus changing direction. Both of them are going to go direct. And whenever that happens, on especially the personal planets of, the Venus, Mercury, even Mars, we experience lots of shifts in our own mindset and how we go about life. Okay, so on a personal level, lots of changes. But apart from that, we also have Jupiter going retrograde on the same day that Venus goes direct. And that's interesting because it's sort of like both of them are moving in parallel, but they're moving in opposite directions. So they kind of see each other, but they can't really meet at this point. So when Jupiter was active, Venus was not, and now Venus is active, so Jupiter is not. And that's going to be an interesting dynamic to see. But apart from that, we also have Saturn in retrograde, Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto in retrograde. So everything is retrograde for like the first few days of the month, and then slowly one by one things start going direct. That is Mercury and Venus. So whenever the bigger planets are retrograde, they're retrograde for a longer time compared to Mercury, let's say. So whatever changes occur on that level, we are more susceptible to absorbing because we don't quite understand it, or it's not yet conscious and it's kind of happening in the background, or this is like involuntary changes that we were not initiating but is introduced through the universe. Okay, so it's sort of a time where the universe is speaking louder than we are able to speak. Okay, so there will be less resistance as a result of this. That's the plus side. We are able to accept the guidance and the intuitive nudges much more easily. And because Mercury, Venus are direct, we are able to kind of incorporate that in a personal level. For example, if you feel like your belief system is not doing you any favors, or that the structures you have in your life are not working in your favor, then there is this opportunity to shift those things. But that initial feeling is going to be the universe speaking. That's the trigger that comes from your soul, from your subconscious, whatever. So yes, there will be changes in beliefs, priorities, and mindsets with Jupiter, Venus, and Mercury changing directions. The next story that's happening is that our focus this month is shifting when the sun is moving from Virgo season into Libra season. So when the sun is in Virgo, there's also a lot of earth activities, earth trines, conjunctions, movements, and so on, right? So there's a lot of earthly matters which are going to happen, and it's going to be a dynamic phase because, again, Mercury is in an earth sign in Virgo, and it changes direction, which changes, again, the flow of things. When the sun moves into Libra, we're going to talk more about relationships and communication, what commitment means or partnership means, and how to find equality and balance and all of that. And this is going to be a more rejuvenating phase because Venus is out of shadow by the time, or at least, it is really, really getting out of shadow almost. So it's going to be, whenever a planet comes out of retrograde phase, basically it is essentially rested and rejuvenated. So it's kind of gaining power through the post-shadow phase, and then it's going to fully glow in its eminence, basically, right? So in Libra season, Venus, the ruler of Libra, is going to come into full strength. So this is going to be rewarding, rejuvenating, not only for relationships, but also financial matters. Another theme to talk about is that there are 6 trines this month. All of them are Earth, which is awesome, which means we have physical blessings, material blessings. And we have 1 conjunction, also Earth, which means there is some emphasis days, which we'll talk about when we get into it. We do have 2 squares, and both of them have Venus involved in it. Okay, so the first one is going to be a direct Venus squaring with Jupiter, who's retrograde. And this is going to be an interesting one because, like I mentioned, going parallel but in opposite direction. And there can be this ideology that we adopt around this time that maybe we and our goals are not able to meet, or our value system, our belief system, they are not able to meet. Okay, so if we move with that assumption, it's not going to do us any favors. It can just seem like we're doing a lot of things but we're going nowhere. That's what it can seem like. But that does not have to be that way. Okay, now keep in mind, Venus in this square is going to be in shadow phase, and that is again indicating that Venus is not yet in full power, so it can't really help Jupiter with much, or it can't really do anything. It can't share the experience as such. It's just going about in its own lane. And Jupiter is in retrograde, so it's kind of in that asleep state, so it's not able to exert itself fully around this time either. So with that, if you mix in the square, the illusion or the assumption that we don't have power, or that we still have a lot of other things to be taken care of before we start moving towards our goals, that can be quite strong. But the plus side is, if we remove that assumption, that initial thing, and just go with things with an open mind, an open heart, and just give it a shot, it's not going to be this way. It is actually quite blissful. It can help you recognize what you're really looking for in life and all of that. We'll get into the actual effects more as I talk about your zodiac. Next, the other square is also with Venus direct, but this square, she's out of shadow. Okay, she's going to square with Uranus. And what's interesting is Uranus is going to be retrograde, right? So all this month of August and even July, Venus was squaring with Uranus. In the first phase, she was going into shadow, so she was losing strength. So Uranus was kind of winning this square, let's say. In the second month, in August, Venus was fully in retrograde, so she was not in the mood to contest with Uranus's whims and fancies. Okay, so again, Uranus wins that. This would be the first time where Venus is stronger and Uranus is kind of like, okay, well, I've made whatever I needed to make as a change, and what do you have to say? And what's even more interesting is that Venus also rules Taurus, where Uranus is sitting. So she can really dictate how we're going to take advantage of the changes that have already happened, the breakthroughs we have made, the realizations that have occurred in the months of July and September. Venus is now going to put that into context, put a more pleasant spin to it. Like, it doesn't have to be so drastic. We can, take it one step at a time and make the best of it. So all in all, it seems a little optimistic. And we also have an opposition. That's the only opposition. So one opposition, one conjunction. In opposition, we have Virgo again being involved, but here we're going to learn to balance the emotion side of it. So it's nice that we don't have a completely practical and logical month, which generally happens when we have so much Virgo and Libra presence, but we also have a little bit of emotion mixed in there, so we're able to kind of come back to center. Okay, fourth storyline, let's talk about the moon phases. We have a new moon in Virgo along with Mercury going direct. That's going to be on the 15th. And we also have a full moon in Libra on the 29th. And this is going to be the date that Venus squares with Uranus. So both days we have some important events occurring. So these lunar phases are not going to be boring, to say the least. We'll talk about it a lot more when we get into your zodiac. But in essence, new moons talk about new potentials and new beginnings. Meanwhile, full moons talk about completion of a cycle or pivoting into a new direction. Quite fateful. There can be external help and triggers that kind of show us and point where we should be headed next, basically. Now, the fifth storyline is that eclipse is coming about very soon. So September is sort of a drum roll phase. And at first, we might not feel it too much because we're kind of busy with the whole slumber of all the planets being retro. Then on the 4th, Venus goes direct and so on and so forth. So slowly we start waking up and getting into the mode of realizing the fateful changes that the eclipses are going to bring. Because those fated changes, they are, again, universally directed. And because so many of these outer planets are retrograde, we are, like I mentioned, we don't have that much resistance. We're more accepting of what's coming in. So this is going to be an interesting eclipse season in October, and we're starting to see what it could be about. Okay? All right, let's start with your specific reading. So Aquarius, let's talk about the planets changing direction, because that's one of the major things that's happening in this month. We have Jupiter in Taurus going retrograde. That falls in your 4th house of home and family, as well as ancestry and personal sense of security, stability, and so on. So that is turning retrograde means that there can be certain belief systems that are being challenged at this time, or you're going through them and you're evaluating what conditionings have worked in your favor and what does not work in your favor anymore. There can be certain ancient traditions that your family might have cultivated that needs to be followed up on, and you might be in charge of doing so. Also, this can talk about what feels like home to you and what do you consider as security in life. Okay, these are some questions, big picture questions that are coming up for you in this Jupiter retrograde cycle. On the same day, we have the other benefic, Venus, in the sign of Leo going direct. Now, she has been retrograde since July 23rd. She was in shadow phase all throughout July, and she has been in Leo for quite some time. She's still going to be in Leo throughout this month. So that is affecting your 7th house of love and relationships, your partnerships, and your one-to-one collaborations and connections as well. So this can talk about whatever has been foggy or has not been working out in the past connected to this area is now going to have some positive turnaround, or you're going to have enough clarity to recognize whether a certain relationship is best for you or it's not so good for you. It can even be quite beneficial to implement the changes that you might have been feeling connected with what you're expecting from a relationship as well. Now, Venus retrograde Venus rules love as well as money. Okay, all forms of abundance is ruled by Venus, and when she is in that relationship house, she could have been pretty strong for you. Your need for independence could have come up. For example, where do you feel stuck? Where do you hold yourself back? Or where is it that your partnerships are not able to commit to you fully, or commit to you in some other fashion that both of you are consented to? So this here can, with this planet going direct again, there is so much clarity coming through that you can actually implement all of these changes. Now, your desires are as well pretty clear. Okay, then the other planet that changes direction is Mercury, who goes direct on the 15th in the sign of Virgo, which it rules. So the first half of September is still in Mercury retrograde phase, and it's a nice time to research, revise, redo certain things that are not going to the best of its capacity, neaten certain things up, reorganize, and all of that. Also a very nice time to declutter in terms of internal psychological situations, especially for you, because it falls in your 8th house of your psyche, subconscious. Any therapy work that you are involved in or want to get involved in, it would be a nice time where you get some, work done. The 8th house and Virgo talk about healing and positive transformation that helps, enhance your internal talents and brings you out of your shadow and your insecurities, essentially. Now, the shadow means both things, that the shadow is essentially talking about what is suppressed. Okay, it can be something good that has been not acknowledged, or it has been shamed in the past that you don't feel so great about. It can be certain skills you have, certain talents you have, but it also represents the fears and insecurities that are suppressed, and they have a way of showing up in a curveball kind of manner. So any conditioning connected to this, or anything that has been societally introduced from a trauma, for example. This is a nice opportunity to go over that and really understand where you're coming from and why, and find healing and compassion throughout that process. So when on the 15th Mercury goes direct, you have the needed clarity for this point in time, and that helps you recognize, who has the best interests in your life. Now, Virgo and other earth signs, they rule trust as well. And sometimes there can be a misplaced trust type of feeling. And with the earth sign being in the 8th house, and with Mercury in retrograde, it could have been quite clear about who is truly intimate with you or wants to be intimate with you, and who is just in it for the short haul and just for the nice weather type of situations. So when Mercury goes direct now, you have lots of clarity of how you can achieve greater and deeper intimacy with others, but also how you can share your resources more efficiently. Now, talking about shared resources, things connected with investments or loans could have been a little bit disturbing, distracting, or unclear in the first half of September, even towards the end of August. And now 15th onwards, you're likely to have the necessary information or documentation that you need to move forward in a specific direction. Now let's talk about the trines. This month we have lots of trines, and all of them are earth trines. So that's quite nice, because earth trines talks about a manifestation in the physical reality, or it's an action we can take and something we can do right now, right here, that is going to give us long-term and sustainable results. So let's talk about the Mercury trining with Jupiter occurring on the 4th first, and then we'll move on to the other time that it trines with Jupiter again. So on the 4th, both these planets are retrograde, and both of them are in earth signs, and the zodiac season at this point is as well the sun in Virgo, so it's another earth sign. Now Virgo falls in your 8th house and Taurus falls in your 4th house, so this is going to be felt more internally for you or on a personal level. This can talk about you getting some type of loan or some type of deposit investment regarding a home. This can be receiving from your family, but it can also come through shared resources and other for example, banks giving you some type of loan here, and that can make you quite fulfilled or creates sort of breakthrough. But because both of these planets are still retrograde, this can be felt more internally. For example, a sense of hope coming about, or you are recognizing where you can look in order to get the benefits later down the line. Now, later down the line would be the 25th, more likely. You'll start seeing some intermediate results starting from the 15th, but around the 25th, you're going to get something solid or something clear enough that you can move forward on. So on the 25th, Mercury is no longer retrograde. Jupiter still is, but that's okay. It's an outer planet. We're not going to feel it too drastically. And because it's a trine situation, it's going to be opportunity based. It's going to be something fulfilling and inspiring for you as well. But the zodiac season is now shifting from Virgo season to Libra season. That is going to highlight your 9th house. Now, 9th house is at a positive angle with your particular zodiac. So Libra and Aquarius are both air signs, and they work well with each other. So wherever your focus is shifting 23rd onwards, you're likely going to see some breakthroughs. This can bring in expansion and future opportunities for growth. Also brings in harmony in your life, more connectedness with the universe, to the divine, if that's something you're interested in. But overall, it enhances your vibration and your energy in general, so you're able to attract more resources from others. For example, you're making much better impressions 23rd onwards. The conversations, the way you're approaching situations, that is going to be more appealing, or at least come across knowledgeable, wise, on point in the eyes of others. Okay, so even though they are the same planets and the same zodiacs that these same planets are on, it still has a different form of expression, but at the same time they're connected with one another in a particular way. So this can also talk about certain psychological or internal breakthroughs and some type of healing occurring, and you have a lot of clarity come the 25th. Another trine that the Mercury makes is with Uranus, and Uranus is as well in that fourth house of home family. It is retrograde at this point. So this can talk about the changes that have occurred in the past couple months. You're making more sense of them. You're putting them in context of your everyday life. This can talk about upgrading your lifestyle as well. Any goals that you have regarding your health, diet, nutrition, also your psyche, so your mental health as well, there can be some breakthroughs regarding that. Any ways that your family has been blocking you, or some ancestral wounds that you may have been carrying knowingly or unknowingly, that is also going to come to light, so you can heal from that or accept that depending on your use case. Now let's move on from the Mercury trines, which is more about mental clarity and also what can be done about it, to the Sun trines, which is more about focus and clarity in general. So, the knowing of something, the awareness of something is represented by the Sun. So the Sun trines with Jupiter on the 8th. Jupiter is in Taurus, retrograde, and the Sun trines with Uranus on the 16th, and Uranus is as well in Taurus and retrograde. So the same houses are being lit up, the 8th and the 4th, and that is again bringing you clarity and some, opportunities that were previously not recognized or not followed up on these particular days. A little bit before and after as well, you can see some good news coming in. And because these are targeting your 4th and 8th houses, which are more internal, I would not be surprised if you get certain dreams with, certain symbolism as well. For example, what could be an example? With financial dreams, I generally see water, and that's something I've read that is associated with that, like flowing water. It can be fish and elephants, things like that as well that connect with that. But, everyone sees a different symbolism, with relation with their own psyche. So just look up any symbols that you find very interesting and that stick to your mind when you wake up, because that can give you some context. But apart from that, this is indicating that there are some tangible resources that you can take advantage of that are in your life at this time, or it is resources that have been owed to you and have not yet come about in the past for some or the other reason, and you experience that breakthrough and you're able to up-level your life moving from this point on. Another trine that the Sun makes with another Earth zodiac is with Pluto in the sign of Capricorn. So it's not affecting the Taurus house, but rather the 12th house of Capricorn that you have. And Pluto is retrograde at this time. So your 8th and 12th houses being trined, I don't think you're going to feel this very consciously, but it can be just a feeling that you have or an intuition that you have about let's say your goals, your ambitions, your legacy, as well as your inner state of how do you block yourself, how do you encourage yourself, what stops you, what external situations have been in the way in the past, and what can be done about that right now. The Sun also brings in healing. Pluto talks about transformation. When it is retrograde, it can talk about some past life karma that comes, not really comes around, but is getting healed around this time. The 12th house talks about abstract topics such as spirituality, imagination, intuition, surrender, acceptance, going with the flow, things like that. So with Capricorn here, it can be generally a little bit hard to just let go and let loose and flow. But with Pluto here, it can talk about power being gathered from that space. So being in an accepting state at this time is going to be helpful because it brings in some spiritual guidance and synchronicities as well. This is a little bit more faith oriented. So if you're not generally comfortable with that, it might be that you experience certain automatic blessings, but you're not consciously able to recognize it. That's okay. Trines have a way of bringing in blessings whether or not we are working with them consciously, so that's nice. All right, now let's move on to the Sun conjunct with Mercury, and Mercury is retrograde. All of this is in the sign of Virgo in your 8th house, which is occurring on the 6th. This is when you are likely to experience some breakthroughs on a psychological level. Some subconscious beliefs can come up to the surface as well. Certain healing is getting done. If you're involved with healing modalities, metaphysical healing, for example, or astrology, psychology, any studies with that in that regard, this can be about you learning something that is quite inspiring for you and puts your own life in context, helps you understand your entire childhood or your entire teenage years or whatever the case is. But it also can help other people out depending on which side of the equation you're on. Also on the 6th, anything that is foggy connected with investments or loans or documentations connected with that, you're going to receive some form of clarity. And let's talk about the opposition, which is occurring on the 19th between the Sun and Neptune. The Sun is in Virgo in your 8th house, and the Neptune is in Pisces and is retrograde in your 2nd house. So this is the financial axis, but also your worth. So how much do you value yourself versus how much do you value others, and how do you value yourself, how do you value others, and so on. So and there can be some practical steps that you're taking or have taken throughout this month and the previous month as well, which is going to bring in some type of, getting the sense, imagination or like an intuition of how you can maximize your income or how you can maximize the value you get out of your own time and investments. It's not going to be very, very tangible, this one, because Neptune is involved. Whenever Neptune is there, retrograde or not, it's sort of fuzzy and cloudy. It's not super clear, and because it's an opposition, we need to find a bit of balance. So we can't be overly practical, nor can we be overly intuitive or imaginative, because then we can risk getting scammed or just taking on certain projects or responsibilities that we may not be able to keep up with later down the line. What I do like is that it's a mutable opposition, which means that there is a general sense of flexibility and adaptability with this, and therefore you might have multiple ways of earning or multiple loan options or multiple something, and then you might have a bit of a confusion of which one should I choose. All right, so that's why I said it's important to listen to both sides of practicality as well as intuition. There can be a middle path that can be found here. Okay, now let's talk about the Venus squares. So Venus squares with Jupiter on the 17th. At this time, it is Virgo season. Virgo is a neutral, has a neutral effect with Leo. It's neither bad nor good, but it is in a beneficial angle with Jupiter, who's in the sign of Taurus. So at this point in time, Venus is not yet fully out of shadow, and therefore is not fully fierce, fully independent, and so on as she would like to be. And this square here indicates that we might have this initial feeling or assumption that what we are desiring to create for ourselves and for our relationships, in your case, may not be possible to achieve. But this first instinct can be because there are certain beliefs that hold ourselves back, like certain assumptions that love has to be only this way. We just accept that and we just live with it many times. We don't even realize that we do that ourselves, right? But this would be the time with the square that there is a forced action, like it comes up to the forefront. There can be a trigger that happens and we're like, okay, well, this is something I enjoy and this is what holds me back. And then the best way to kind of deal with that is work with what you have right now. Okay, Taurus is all about living in that moment, and both of them, Leo and Taurus, are fixed signs just like you. So focusing on what is right now and moving very slowly and methodically is going to be a good idea. There will be certain breakthroughs that come out of this. Both of them are benefic planets, and whether or not they're retrograde or direct, they are always trying to work in our favor, bring in awakening, bring in more abundance and blessings and fulfillment and all of that. So it's just us stopping ourselves at this point, and I say that because Jupiter is retrograde and that kind of focuses everything inward, right? So the best way would be to move past or try to move past that initial assumption that we can't have what we want, or that we're not enough, or that we don't deserve a specific person or a type of relationship and all of that, and just kind of see what is right in front, or try to, and work with what we have. Now on 17th, it is exact, so you might feel this assumption most strongly, but a little bit, give it some time, like 1 day later, 2 to 3 days later, you're going to figure out a better way of dealing with the situation. Be patient with yourself. The energy is not going to just be affecting you 1 day and then disappear the next day. So yes, you have absolutely a couple of days to take advantage of this. Now the other square that Venus makes is with Uranus, also in Taurus, also retrograde retrograde on the 29th, and at this time it is Libra season, and Venus rules Libra, so she's in a strong position at this time. She's out of shadow, out of retrograde, she's feeling herself again. So that means that you're in a strong position with regards to your relationships. You're more charming, you're coming across more appealing, people are attracted to you, you are finding attractive people or attractive opportunities where you can go and meet people. And the square with Uranus can indicate that whatever sudden realizations or breakthroughs or other challenges might have happened in the past couple months in July and August, you're likely to make the best out of it. Making lemonade out of lemons type of aspect, this one. Now I say that because Venus has been squaring with Uranus all throughout July and into August as well, and she has not been feeling her best all this while. First she was in shadow, then she was in retrograde, and she was like, well, I don't know what to do about these changes. And Uranus kind of had all the reign. And he's like, here you go. This is the change. That's the change. This is something you got to work on. And Venus is, because she's not feeling strong, there could have been financial losses or certain disturbances in your dating life, in your love life, and any partnerships and collaborations you have had at this time. So this would be the first instance where Venus is feeling herself fully. She's feeling quite strong and independent and quite fierce as well, and Uranus is not introducing any new changes because it's retrograde. So it's a time for us to make sense of what has happened and soak that in, let it sink in, put it into context of what we want, where we're headed, and so on. Now, because it's a square, this is quite radical and moving towards independence, okay? You are a very independent sign. You are quite innovative and original in yourself, and Venus is all about, okay, well, I have this coming up and I can feel that this is a side of me that is wanting to break out and break free. So how can I make this also very appealing, attractive, creative, or inspiring to others as well? It's a force for change, this particular square. She's feeling quite fierce and exciting in general. So this is a fiery day, also because of the full moon. I'll talk about that in a second. But because it's Libra season at this time, also Venus is able to bring in more opportunities for change or opportunities for adjusting with the changes that have happened already. Some small little things to mention. The Libra season begins when the sun moves from Virgo into Libra. That occurs on the 23rd, which is when we have the autumnal equinox. So moving from this point on, it's going to be more about the bigger picture thinking. It is more about the wisdom phase, surrender, acceptance, and also transformation, purging, cleansing, all of these topics on a collective level. Another thing to mention is that this month is going to be a drum roll for the eclipses that are going to start in October. We have 2 eclipses in that month, and therefore observe the background trends that are happening, any fateful changes or encounters you might be going through this month, because that can give you some, tips, or gives you a little bit of awareness of what's about to come up. Also observe where you feel most stuck, regardless of what you try, what you attempt, because that's where you can experience certain fated breakthroughs or fated dynamic changes as well. So finally, let's get into the moons. We have a new moon in the sign of Virgo, which is trining with Uranus in Taurus, and Uranus is retrograde on the 15th. And it's the same day that we have Mercury in Virgo as well, going direct. So it's a very Virgo and Earth connected new moon, which talks about physical manifestations and new beginnings, new potentials, new skills as well that come out of your shadows and manifest themselves into your life. Or you have this inner feeling that I know if I try this out, I know I'm going to be very skilled and I have this talent within me. I've just never explored it. And 15th onwards, you might really have the incentive or the desire or even the plan and strategy to make that particular skill come about into full fruition. Of course, again, still there's some stuff to be done. New moon does not mean that you're completing this, but about like 6 months from now, you are able to fully realize that if you follow up on it. Also, it can talk about certain breakthroughs or healing that is happening from the inside out in your psyche. Perhaps you're going for therapy and you have a big turnaround at this time. Now, the full moon that's occurring on the 29th is, like I mentioned, happening parallel to that Venus square with Uranus. It's an Aries full moon, so the sun is in Libra in your 9th house, and the moon is in your 3rd house of communication, short distance travel, community, your thoughts, social media, your marketing, advertising, writing as well. Even if you're learning something, it can be something connected to that. So like I mentioned, it's a fiery full moon, so it's going to be quite passionate. You're likely to take certain initiatives, and the courage is quite loud and clear. It's a very fierce day. Because it's a time of full moon, it's easy to react based on heightened emotions and be quite impulsive. That's something to watch out for, but it doesn't mean that you can't take advantage of the situation. If you're waiting on some type of courage to inspire you, or some other thing in your vicinity, maybe a post you read or an article you read, and that's just quite inspiring for you to get moving towards a direction that you want to be going in. And this can also talk about connecting with a partner. If you already are in a partnership, this can be words of motivation or inspiration that they give you, and it just fuels you, motivates you, and inspires you to move towards some type of change that you want to create in your life. So that's what I have for you. Thank you for being here. I really hope you enjoyed and that the messages help you out throughout the month. Stay tuned for the tarot reading as well. I will be uploading them soon. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you're notified whenever that's up. And if you enjoyed the reading, please do like and comment your thoughts if you have any. It will be really lovely to hear back from you, and it really helps the channel grow as well. I will see you some other time. Until then, take care. Bye.